A mysterious woman in a torn wedding dress is found unconscious on a rainy mountain road by a quiet mechanic named Noah. She has no name, no memory, only a haunting past that slowly resurfaces. As fragments return, a shocking truth unravels. She's the heiress of a powerful empire, running from an arranged marriage and a life she never chose. What happens when the hunted finds the courage to fight back and love finds her in the most unexpected place? Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more unforgettable stories like this. The rain fell in whispers, soft and persistent, coating the mountain road in a silver sheen. Noah Green gripped the wheel of his beat-up pickup truck, eyes narrowed against the blur of fog curling like ghostly fingers through the pines. He had just finished a grueling 12-hour shift at the only auto shop in town, grease still caked under his fingernails and exhaustion buzzing behind his eyes. The radio crackled static as he took a curve near mile marker 17, a stretch of road so quiet it felt forgotten by the world. Then he saw it. A flash of white, too low to be mist, too still to be fog. His foot slammed the brake. The truck skidded slightly on the slick asphalt before groaning to a halt. Noah was out in a second, boots splashing through shallow puddles as he jogged toward the edge of the road. What he found made his stomach twist. A woman lay crumpled in the brush, partially covered by fallen leaves and soaked to the bone. Her dress, once clearly elegant, now clung to her like a second skin, torn, muddy, streaked with blood. A wedding dress. Her bare feet were scratched and raw, her skin bone-pale beneath the truck's dim headlights. "Oh God," Noah muttered, kneeling beside her. "Hey, can you hear me?" He gently touched her shoulder, his voice firm but low. "You're gonna be okay, just stay with me." No response, but her chest rose faintly. He checked her pulse, weak, but there. A nasty gash bled sluggishly from her forehead, and her ankle was twisted at an unnatural angle. She looked like she'd been through hell. And yet, there was something hauntingly graceful about her. Even caked in mud and rain, she looked like she'd come from another world. Noah's training kicked in, instincts from his days on the local mountain rescue team roaring to the surface. He raced to the truck bed, pulled out his emergency kit, and returned to her side. With quick hands, he cleaned the wound on her forehead and wrapped it in gauze. "You're safe now," he whispered, more to reassure himself than her. "I've got you." Shrugging off his flannel jacket, he wrapped it around her shivering frame. Her lips were tinged blue, but her breathing held steady. Carefully, Noah lifted her into his arms. She was lighter than he expected. Fragile, almost too breakable. Like a bird with a broken wing. He carried her to the truck, laying her gently on the passenger seat, propping her leg the best he could. 15 minutes to the hospital. He drove fast, eyes flicking between the road and her face, her soaked hair clinging to her cheeks. "What the hell happened to you?" he whispered. "Who left you out here like this?" A glint caught his eye, something around her wrist. A bracelet. Gold, simple but heavy, not costume jewelry. It glimmered briefly under the dashboard light, revealing an engraving, a serpent curled around a blooming rose. He frowned. No brand he recognized. It felt old, symbolic, and very expensive. The hospital finally came into view through the haze. Noah honked twice and screeched into the emergency bay. Nurses rushed out as he jumped from the truck, waving frantically. "She's hurt bad," he said, breathless. "Found her off the woods near marker 17. I think she fell or I don't know, but she's bleeding and unconscious." They lifted her onto a stretcher and Noah followed as far as the ER doors, stopping only when they swung shut behind her. For a long moment, he stood there soaked and trembling, rain dripping from his hair, heart pounding in time with the storm outside. The fluorescent lights above flickered. Who was she? Why was she alone in the woods, in a wedding dress, on a night like this? And why did it feel deep in his bones, like this was only the beginning? Noah sat in the corner of the hospital's waiting room, his hands clasped so tightly his knuckles had gone white. Rain dripped from the hem of his jeans, and the smell of antiseptic soaked the air like a warning. Nurses moved swiftly through sterile halls, their voices low, purposeful, but he heard none of it. His eyes were fixed on the double doors that had swallowed the woman, this stranger in white, who now felt like more than just someone he'd rescued. She felt like a question that had unsettled something deep inside him. A nurse finally approached, clipboard in hand. "She's stable," she said softly. "Concussion, deep laceration to the forehead, and a dislocated ankle. But honestly, she's lucky." "Did she say anything? Do you know who she is?" Noah asked, rising quickly. "No ID, no phone, no purse, and no memory," the nurse added, her voice lowering. She woke briefly, panicked, mumbled a few things. Car chase, wedding, cliff. Then she was out again, nothing coherent. Noah's stomach twisted. That strange bracelet still haunted his mind, that symbol etched in gold, a serpent and rose. He couldn't explain it, but something about it made him feel like she wasn't just any runaway bride. She was someone important, someone being hunted. A young police officer showed up later that morning, interviewed Noah, and took prints from the woman. He returned looking puzzled. "Nothing," he said. "No matches on her fingerprints. No missing bride reported, at least not locally. If she's from out of state or never reported, we won't find her that way. She has to be someone," Noah insisted. "Someone's looking for her." The officer gave a tired shrug. "Maybe, maybe not." Social workers backed up. "She's not a minor or a danger to herself. If you're willing to keep an eye on her." He trailed off. It wasn't the week Noah had planned, but when he stepped into her hospital room later that day and saw her lying there, pale, bandaged, that gold bracelet still glinting faintly on her wrist, he knew he couldn't walk away. She woke that evening with a jolt, her eyes fluttering open like she was surfacing from a dream. They were storm gray, wide, and filled with fear. She looked around the room, blinking, confused and unsure. "Hey," Noah said gently, stepping closer. "You're safe. I'm Noah. I found you near the woods last night. Do you remember anything?" She tried to sit up, winced at the pain, then looked down at her leg in a cast and her arms covered in bruises. Her fingers touched the hospital gown, her lips parting in confusion. I don't know," she whispered. "I don't know who I am." "That's okay," he said, pulling up a chair beside her. "You don't have to know right now. Just rest." She closed her eyes again, then murmured something under her breath. "There was a car. Someone was chasing me. I think I fell. There was a wedding. I was supposed to. No, I didn't want to." Noah leaned forward, heart pounding. "You were wearing a wedding dress," he confirmed. Her hand instinctively went to her wrist, brushing over the bracelet, and that's when he noticed the ink beneath it, something the doctors must have missed. A tiny tattoo, just under the gold. "A lily," he smiled faintly. "Until you remember your name," he said. "How about I call you Lily? It suits you." She looked down at the tattoo, then back at him. Her lips curved into the faintest nod. "Okay," she said softly, "Lily." Over the next 2 days, Noah stayed close. The hospital staff had too many patients and too few hands. Lily was quiet, polite, but distant, like she was wearing someone else's skin. She flinched at the hum of the fluorescent lights, panicked during blood pressure checks, and barely slept. When she did, it was restless. She'd wake with her hands clenched, eyes wild. "PTSD," one nurse suggested. "But we can't treat a history we don't know," the doctor said. When they said she'd need to be transferred out to a state shelter, Noah didn't even hesitate. "I'll take her home," he said, "just until we figure things out." And that was how Lily ended up in Noah Green's quiet, pine-framed cabin, where the past still lurked in shadows, and the truth had yet to step into the light. The cabin smelled of pine and old books, tucked far enough from town to feel like a secret. Lily moved through it like a ghost, quiet and careful, the borrowed flannel shirt brushing her knees. Her ankle was still tender, wrapped tight and propped up on a pile of old throw pillows. Noah had given her the guest room, kept the fire stoked, cooked meals she barely touched, and asked nothing of her but time. She said little, though her eyes lingered on everything. His hands as he chopped vegetables, the way sunlight filtered through the trees each morning, even the sound of the floorboards creaking under her steps. Everything seemed new to her, and yet faintly familiar, like a dream she'd half forgotten. One morning, over eggs and coffee, her voice broke the stillness. "I saw something last night," she said, stirring her tea absently. "In my sleep, a room, gilded, like a ballroom." Noah looked up from his plate. "Were you dancing?" She shook her head slowly. "No, I was locked inside. The windows were too high, the doors were thick. I was wearing a wedding dress, again." He came around the table and sat across from her. "Was anyone else there?" "A woman," she murmured, her brows furrowing. "Older. Beautiful. but cold. She called me foolish, kept saying I had to go through with it. Her hands trembled around the cup. I think she's my mother. Noah didn't push. Instead, he handed her the small leather notebook they'd been using. Write it down, he said. Anything. Even if it's fragments. Lily nodded and scribbled the dream into the pages, her handwriting small but certain. She wasn't scared, she said, more to herself. She wasn't trying to protect me, just control me. More fragments followed in the days after. A silver comb laid carefully on a vanity, satin gloves pulled over trembling fingers, the hum of a string quartet from behind a heavy door. And then one afternoon, a voice on the phone. Male. Smooth and sharp. You will marry him. Your family owes us. There is no choice. Each memory came like a pinprick in her mind. Brief, sharp, then gone. Noah stayed patient, working during the day and returning home by dusk. At night, they sat on the porch with mugs of herbal tea, the sound of crickets rising around them. She would talk, he would listen. And something unspoken settled between them, something fragile but real. That Saturday, the town was holding a flea market and Noah suggested they go. Lily hesitated at first, nervous, unsure, but he smiled and said, fresh air, some sunlight, might help. She pulled on a scarf and sunglasses and they drove in. The square was lively. Locals wandered between booths of second-hand books, homemade jams, crocheted blankets. Noah stopped to chat with an old friend selling hand tools, while Lily meandered further down the lane, drawn by a collection of vintage cars displayed behind one of the booths. That's when it hit her. A black pickup truck, rusted and weathered, bore a faded sticker on the door. A serpent curled around a single white rose. Her breath caught. Her knees buckled. The world tilted. In a flash, she was somewhere else, inside a car, sleek and black, speeding through trees. Her wrists were bound, her mouth dry, panic rising. I told you, a man's voice echoed, smooth and merciless. You belong to him now. You cannot run. No, Lily whispered aloud, stumbling back. Noah turned at her scream and ran. He found her on the ground, shaking violently. He got me, she gasped. He found me. Locked me in a car. I jumped out. I think I jumped. Noah held her close, heart pounding. That wasn't an accident, he said, voice low. She nodded, tears streaming. It wasn't a wedding. It was a deal. My family owed them. They were selling me. And in that moment, under the gray sky and among strangers, the pieces finally began to fall into place. Lily Wyndham was not lost. She had been taken. And now she was remembering. That night, long after the market had closed and the stars blinked high above the pines, Lily sat at the kitchen table, wrapped in one of Noah's flannel shirts. Her ankle was elevated, and her eyes were red-rimmed but clear. The notebook lay open in front of her, a pen resting between her fingers. The page was half filled with a single name scrawled over and over, Wyndham. Across from her, Noah watched her quietly. He hadn't pushed. He never did. But tonight, there was something in her face. Determination, maybe. Resolve. I have to go back, she said finally, breaking the silence. I can't run forever. Noah's brow furrowed. You don't owe them anything. I know, she whispered, but I owe myself. I have to stand in front of them. My mother, Derek. I need them to see that I'm not theirs to command. Not anymore. He stood, slowly, walked to her side. You're not doing it alone. She looked up at him, a breath caught in her chest. You don't have to. I know I don't, he said gently, but I want to. 3 days later, they drove into the city. Tall glass buildings rose like monuments to ambition, their reflections bending in the car's windows. It was a world of marble floors, silent chauffeurs, and cold steel edges. Her world once, though it no longer felt like hers at all. Noah parked outside the Wyndham estate, a fortress of wealth wreathed in iron gates and manicured hedges. Lily stared at it for a moment, then stepped out. No makeup, no jewelry, just clean lines and steady breath. Inside, the butler stared at her like he'd seen a ghost. Miss Wyndham, he said, stunned. We thought you were. Tell my mother and Derek I'm here, she said, calm, direct, undeniable. They ushered her into the drawing room, where Eleanor Wyndham waited like a marble statue in human skin. Derek Vance stood nearby, his smirk already forming. You've caused quite the scandal, Eleanor snapped, rising from her seat. Do you know what this has cost us? I know exactly what it cost, Lily replied, voice clear and even. And I'm done paying for your mistakes. Derek scoffed. Is this supposed to be noble? You vanish and come back to throw a tantrum? I'm not here for applause, Lily said. I'm here to say this face to face. I'm not marrying you, I never will, and if my place in this family depends on being a pawn, I'll walk away from it all. You'd give up your name? Eleanor spat. The legacy? You'd throw away everything? No, Lily said quietly. I'm finally walking toward something. A life I choose. Derek stepped forward, eyes dark. You think that backwoods mechanic can protect you? You'll be nothing without us. Lily met his gaze, steady as stone. Then I'll be nothing, and free, and loved, which is more than I ever got from you. The silence that followed was sharp as glass. Then she turned and walked out, her steps sure and strong. Outside, Noah leaned against the car, watching the door. When she appeared, he stood straighter. Well? He asked. It's done, she said, her voice light with something dangerously close to peace. Good, he said, reaching for her hand. Then let's start something new. They didn't speak much on the way back, letting the city fade in the rearview mirror. But Lily leaned her head against his shoulder, and for the first time since she could remember, she didn't feel like she was running. She felt like she was arriving. Wherever the road led next, she would walk it not as a Wyndham, not as a runaway bride, but as a woman who finally chose her own name, her own love, her own freedom. The small lakeside town felt like a place time had forgotten. Crisp air drifted through golden trees, and the morning sun cast soft light on the shop fronts lining Main Street. On the corner, beneath a hand-painted wooden sign that read the Rose and Wrench Café, laughter floated through the open windows. Inside, Lily, no longer Wyndham, no longer a shadow of her past, moved behind the counter with flour on her cheek and sleeves rolled to her elbows. She handed a cinnamon bun to a local teacher, remembered a teenager's coffee order without being asked, and waved to the florist who dropped off fresh daisies each Friday. Across the street, Monroe Auto and Repair buzzed with the steady rhythm of tools and teenage chatter. Noah had finally opened the garage he'd dreamed of, with space to rebuild old engines and teach high schoolers practical skills. Most afternoons, he'd wander across for lunch, grease still on his hands, just to see Lily smile like he'd brought the sun with him. They built their life quietly, steadily. There were no headlines, no scandals. Just early mornings, honest work, and the kind of love that didn't need to be spoken to be felt. Lily still had nightmares sometimes, the kind that left her breathless and clutching the sheets, but Noah was always there, steady, patient, no questions asked. And that was all the safety she needed. The town never pried. They asked no questions about her past, only welcomed her with pie, warm conversation, and a place at every local potluck. To them, she wasn't an heiress or a scandal. She was the woman who made the best lemon scones in the valley and remembered your dog's name. One clear morning, just behind the cafe where wildflowers bloomed against a wooden fence, rows of folding chairs were set in a small clearing, ivy curled around a wooden arch tied with soft white ribbons. There were no photographers, no news vans, just the town, gathered like family. And there, stepping out of a tiny cabin in a dress once meant to bind her to a cage, Lily walked barefoot through the grass. The gown had been mended, cleaned, and now shimmered under the soft light. A crown of daisies rested on her head, and in her hands was a single note, her vows creased but carefully folded. Noah stood beneath the arch, wearing the same quiet smile he had the night he found her on the road, soaked and broken, and carried her to safety. His suit was simple. His eyes said everything. The ceremony was short, heartfelt. The pastor, who also ran the hardware store on weekdays, spoke of love built not on perfection but persistence. On listening, choosing, and showing up even when it's hard. When it came time for vows, Noah took Lily's hands and said, "When I found you, you didn't know who you were. But somehow, you became the compass that showed me who I wanted to be." Lily's voice trembled as she replied, "You saw me when I didn't even recognize myself. You didn't ask me to be anything but real. And with you, I've become someone I actually love being." Their first dance was barefoot, the grass soft beneath their feet, fireflies floating like sparks in the dusk. No spotlight, no cameras, just the steady hum of crickets and the distant laughter of the people who had become their family. Later, as they sat together on the porch swing, Lily leaned into him and asked, "Do you ever miss it? That world?" Noah kissed her temple. Not even a little. And as she rested her head on his shoulder, listening to the breeze rustling through the trees, Lily knew with absolute certainty that she had finally arrived. Not at a destination marked by gates or gold, but in a life built on choice, on love, and on the freedom she had fought so long to find. She was no longer running. She was home. Sometimes the most powerful journeys begin with a single, desperate choice. The decision to run, to leap, to say no to a life that doesn't belong to you. The Runaway Heiress isn't just a story about escape. It's a story about reclamation, about finding your voice after being silenced, your worth after being measured by someone else's standards, and your heart after it's been used as a bargaining chip. Lily's transformation, from a woman defined by her family's expectations to one who reclaims her identity on her own terms, reminds us that real freedom isn't handed to you. It's something you choose, often in the face of fear. In Noah, he teaches us that love doesn't always come with grand gestures or heroic rescues. Sometimes it looks like showing up every day, listening, letting someone heal on their own timeline, being the steady when everything else is chaos. In a world that often measures success by power, wealth, or lineage, this story whispers a different truth, that the quiet kind of love, the kind built on presence, trust, and unwavering support, is the kind worth holding on to. So, wherever you are watching from, whether it's a big city, a quiet town, or somewhere in between, we'd love to know, where are you joining us from? Drop your location in the comments below, and if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you never miss another soul-stirring journey. Welcome to a community where every story leads you home.